President Trump is a failed leader. He will go down in history as the worst president ever. The election was stolen because Trump is their man.
Arnold Schwarzenegger brutally humiliated Donald Trump over his so-called 2024 election win, calling it stolen, and now our very stable genius of a president is absolutely losing it.
You are a rude, terrible person. You shouldn't be working for CNN.
And as we all know, this guy holds grudges like it's a full-time job. Never forgives, never forgets, not even a single word against him.
And I want to just pray for Arnold if we can for those ratings, okay?
But this time, the man calling him out isn't just anyone. It's the Terminator himself.
Patriotism means to stand by the country. It does not mean to stand by the president.
But before exposing the real humiliation and Trump's reaction, let's rewind to a time when these two were actually friends. Yeah, sounds wild now, but back in the day, Trump had nothing but admiration for Arnold.
We had a very good relationship. The only thing is, what I think what ticked him off is obviously the fact that I didn't vote for him and that I came out and said I'm not going to vote for him and I would urge others not to vote for him.
The man was a self-made Hollywood superstar, a bodybuilding legend, a political powerhouse. Trump looked at him with respect, maybe even a little envy.
And they hired a big movie star, Arnold Schwarzenegger, to take my place.
Then came the Celebrity Apprentice shakeup. Trump ditched the show to dive headfirst into politics, and NBC handed the keys to none other than Arnold Schwarzenegger. It should have been a seamless swap, one big-name celebrity replacing another. But Trump, oh, he hated it.
And we know how that turned out. The ratings went right down the tubes. It's been a total disaster.
Instead of being a normal human and hyping up his replacement, Trump did what he does best, had a full-blown Twitter meltdown. He trashed Arnold's ratings, dragged his hosting skills, and even insulted his own show just to get a dig in.
And Mark will never, ever bet against Trump again. And I want to just pray for Arnold if we can for those ratings, okay?
That's right, a former president of the United States, publicly losing his mind over a reality TV gig. Arnold, however, wasn't about to let that slide. He clapped back with a mic drop moment, saying,
Hey Donald, I have a great idea. Why don't we switch jobs? You take over TV because you're such an expert in ratings, and I take over your job. And then people can finally sleep comfortably again.
It was brutal, and it was just the warm-up round. As the years rolled on, Arnold watched Trump's presidency unfold. Scandals, controversies, and of course, that messy election loss.
President Trump, I just saw your press conference with President Putin, and it was embarrassing. I mean, you stood there like a little wet noodle, like a little fanboy. I mean, I was asking myself, when are you going to ask him for an autograph or for a selfie or something like that?
Whatever was left of their so-called friendship, gone. And when Trump decided to run for the White House again in 2024, Arnold didn't hold back.
I mean, you literally sold out at this press conference our intelligence community, our justice system, and worst of all, our country. You're the president of the United States. You shouldn't do that. I mean, what's the matter with you? I mean, whatever happened to the strong words or to the strength?
With the 2024 election creeping closer, the usual Trump circus was in full swing. Rallies, bold claims, and the same old rigged election sob story. But just when you thought things couldn't get any more ridiculous, Arnold Schwarzenegger stepped in and threw a verbal nuke.
The election was stolen because Trump is their man. President Trump is a failed leader. He will go down in history as the worst president ever.
He called Trump the worst president in US history. No soft punches, no sugarcoating, just a straight-up KO. Now, Arnold isn't some Hollywood loudmouth talking out of nowhere. He's a former Republican governor, a guy who once stood on the same side of the aisle as Trump. But this wasn't about political teams. This was about Trump pushing America toward a disaster.
The most evil regime in history. Not all of them were rabid anti-Semites or Nazis.
Arnold didn't just go after Trump's policies. He compared his tactics to full-blown Nazi propaganda. And if you thought that was intense, he took it even further. He linked Trump's election lies to Kristallnacht, the night of broken glass.
I'm very aware of Kristallnacht, or the night of broken glass. It was a night of rampage against the Jews carried out in 1938.
A horrific moment in history where Nazi forces stormed Jewish homes and businesses, smashing everything in sight. It was the start of something unspeakably dark. Arnold Schwarzenegger didn't just look at the January 6th Capitol riot as an isolated act of violence. He saw it as a symptom of a much deeper issue.
The broken glass was in the windows of the United States Capitol. But the mob did not just shatter the windows of the Capitol. They shattered the ideals we took for granted.
While most politicians focused on punishing the rioters or blaming Trump directly, Arnold took a different approach. He asked why it happened in the first place. He didn't just call out the people who broke into the Capitol. He called out the system that created them.
Well, I think, Governor Schwarzenegger is highly respected, throughout the country, both because he's a popular figure and he's been a very successful politician. And as his video very dramatically and movingly reflects, he has a strong, he has, somewhere to speak from with a lot of moral authority.
According to him, these weren't just random extremists. They were people who had been lied to, manipulated, and fed a dangerous narrative for years. And the biggest culprits? Right-wing media outlets like Fox News and figures like Tucker Carlson, who spent months pushing Trump's false claim that the 2020 election was stolen. Arnold called it a deliberate effort to mislead the public, creating an environment where millions of Americans genuinely believed democracy had been rigged against them.
Well, they will be buying into it because they want to buy in. Even though when they hear the evidence and when they see it, like for instance, Fox with Tucker Carlson and all this being fired by spreading the wrong news, and Fox going to court because they have lied intentionally.
Instead of just attacking Trump, Arnold went after the ecosystem that allowed his lies to thrive. He pointed out that the Capitol riot wasn't just the result of Trump's words on January 6th. It was the result of years of misinformation, conspiracy theories, and propaganda being normalized on major news platforms. Fox News wasn't just reporting Trump's claims, it was actively reinforcing them, even after courts rejected every single one of his election fraud lawsuits.
Over and over again about this. I mean, it's like, people hear that, but it doesn't mean anything because they just want to believe the election was stolen because Trump is their man.
At the same time, Arnold didn't hold back on how Trump's influence is destroying the Republican Party from within. He openly stated that the GOP has failed to evolve and is still clinging to Trump despite his repeated losses. In an interview, he called it shame that Republicans couldn't come up with a fresh face, someone reasonable. His message was clear. Trump isn't just a losing candidate, he's a liability.
We have this problem now, that there's this hate and there's this prejudice, and we're talking about men against women, women against men, black against white, white against black, Americans against immigrants, immigrants against Americans. It's just like this, it's just, he's from over there and he's a Muslim and he's a Jew and he's black and he's this. I just think that we have to just diffuse that.
Schwarzenegger, who has been a Republican for decades, made it clear that Trump has turned the party into a personality cult rather than a functioning political force. And Arnold isn't alone in this view. Trump's approval within the Republican base has dropped significantly since 2020, and major conservative donors and politicians are actively seeking alternatives. But instead of stepping aside, Trump is doubling down, dragging the GOP further into chaos, and making it easier for Democrats to win.
1938, at the Nazi equivalent of the Proud Boys.
This was a 7-minute speech posted across all his platforms, and within hours, it was everywhere. By the end of the week, it had racked up over 100 million views and generated billions of impressions. It wasn't just Arnold Schwarzenegger speaking, it was the son of a Nazi soldier standing in front of America and warning that history was repeating itself. Looking directly into the camera, he laid it out in brutal clarity.
President Trump is a failed leader. He will go down in history as the worst president ever. The good thing is that he soon will be as irrelevant as an old tweet. Very aware of Kristallnacht, or the night of broken glass.
He told the world about his father, Gustav Schwarzenegger, a man who fell for Hitler's lies, served in the Nazi army, and spent the rest of his life as a broken shell of himself. And then, Arnold turned that warning toward America. He called out Trump's election lies, the enablers who fueled them, and the supporters who bought into the fantasy that democracy had somehow betrayed them. He warned that America was heading down a dangerous road, but unlike in 1938, there was still time to stop it.
A big tent idea of Ronald Reagan. And I think this is why we have helped it to some extent here in California with getting rid of gerrymandering and to do redistricting reform. I think independents are going to take over the Republicans, they're going to take over the Democrats also.
Being Trump couldn't handle the humiliation, but instead of delivering a strong rebuttal or even attempting to defend himself, he did what he does best, made it about TV ratings.
Arnold Schwarzenegger to take my place. And we know how that turned out. The ratings went right down the tubes. It's been a total disaster.
So being from Europe, I've seen firsthand how things can spin out of control. I know there is a fear in this country and all over the world that something like this could happen right here.
Ignoring the fact that Arnold had just compared his leadership to Nazi propaganda and called him a threat to democracy, Trump's grand response was mocking Schwarzenegger's stint on The Celebrity Apprentice, claiming his ratings were a total disaster. That was it. No counter-arguments, no damage control, just a reality TV insult from a current president. It was the weakest clapback in history, the equivalent of bringing a butter knife to a gunfight, and the internet wasted no time pointing it out, drowning Trump's weak attempt at a comeback in an avalanche of memes and mockery. With the way this is escalating, I won't be shocked if Trump drops a death statement on Arnold, so stay tuned, like, and subscribe.